Today's episode of The Finish Line, myself, Richmond Webb, and Mr. Ballgame will discuss the Miami Dolphins seem to have been rejected in terms of their initial offer by a veteran cornerback they've been courting. Is this where we're at right now with the secondary? My Lord. We're also going to discuss Hala Miami and Madrid as the first game has been announced. We'll talk about the Dolphins in Spain. Plus, we'll talk about so much more, including the Miami Dolphins getting another piece to their defensive front off waivers today. Got a ton to talk about. Do me the favor, smash that like button, subscribe if you are new, and as always, let's get into this.
Loses the football. Touchdown! Got it! You have got to be kidding me. Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score! Field down the near side, man open. Touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown! He's going deep. He's got it for a touchdown again.
Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go!
All right, huddle up, huddle up. We're gonna crank these engines up on one. All right? Wait, 80. Wait, set. Drivers, start your engines.
This is the Finish Line.
I coached some great offensive linemen in the past. Larry Little, Dwight Stevenson, Jim Langer, all Hall of Famers, and Richmond Webb belongs to that same group.
Here are your hosts, legendary Miami Dolphins left tackle Richmond Webb, Reason, and Mr. Ballgame.
In the words of Aaron Lewis, a famous singer from Stained, and it's been a while. Welcome back to the Finish Line. It's me, Ballgame, and Richmond Webb. For the offseason, we're going to be trying to come to you guys on Tuesdays, just while we get the starting lineup figured out with me and Dougley. And then once that moves to its own channel, which is going to be happening when the preseason happens, Finish Line will probably be moving back to Wednesday nights. So just giving you guys an update. But gentlemen, we haven't had a chance to talk since the draft. And I mean, I could sit here and talk about how right I was for 10 minutes about Kenneth Grant and Jonas Vainaya. But instead, I'm going to give you guys the floor. How are y'all doing? What did you think of the draft? Are you happy with the draft? How's life been?
Man, it's good actually to be back. You stick to rapping and bars. I don't want you singing no R&B and all that reason. So yeah, you gotta keep it G. But man, I've been good. I love the draft. I thought we addressed needs. Love the draft picks and all that. So that was good. And then this past weekend, my daughter graduated with her master's degree from Texas A&M. So she the last one, so hopefully I start getting a little raise now that we done got her out of school, and she's starting her job in June. But man, I've been good. Missed you guys. Missed kind of interacting with everybody. During the show, reading the comments and stuff, and looking forward to the season getting started. But Other than that, I've been good. Just kind of laying back, chilling. I ain't been doing too much, but just happy to be on here with you guys. And I'm gonna turn it over to Professor X, Mr. Ballgame himself. Go ahead, Mr. Ballgame.
Professor X. Life's been good, man. I've been extremely busy, trying to tie up some loose ends on some contracts I had with the military that were still open. I was out in San Antonio all last week doing that, and really and truthfully, I'm kind of happy with the draft. I like the picks. I like the picks because they were picks that were picks of need for key positions, things that we had already been talking about previously and addressed that need to be addressed, and they stuck to the script and didn't go out on some wild goose hunts. They went and got guys that are going to bring some levels of nastiness and physicality to the positions. A lot of what we need because this team has at times been deemed to be soft. And these guys, and for all intents and purposes, there's nothing soft about them if you look at their tape and how they played and how effective they were in college. So I like what they did there, and just glad to be back.
So what do you guys think of the draft? You guys happy with the draft? I mean, we got Kenneth Grant, someone that I had been talking about on this channel since November, December. Actually, October, November-ish. We've been talking about him on this channel, me and Neil. Someone I've been telling people, Patreons and channel members since December that the Dolphins wanted him at 13. Jonas Savaianaya, another guy I put on the radar with the Dolphin fan base. I was talking about him again in that October, November. I wanted him as our right tackle or swing option at guard. And they brought him in and they traded up for him. They jumped the Patriots and they stopped the Patriots. Think about this. They stopped the Patriots from building an offensive line centered around Will Campbell, Jonas Savaianaya, and people seem to forget they got the number one center in the draft, Jared Wilson, from Georgia as well. Right. So they jumped and they stopped. And I think I got a theory for him. I know they were really high on Carson Schlesinger. And Carson Schlesinger went at the top of the second round to the Browns. And I think that's why they're like, we're not joking around now. Like, go get our guy in Jonas Savaianaya. And they were just like, let's make the move. You know what I mean? Then they double dipped at defensive tackle. They traded back from 116. Then they took at 143 Jordan Phillips. Now I know they were looking at defensive tackle at 116, but there was a run of 3 defensive tackles right before they picked Deion Walker out of Kentucky, CJ West out of Indiana, and Ty Robinson out of Nebraska. All went within like 8 to 12 picks before they picked, and they traded back. I'm led to believe they're eyeing CJ West specifically, but what did you guys think about the draft, man? Because we got a lot to talk about out of this draft. There's a lot of talking points to take away from it. So let's start with you, Ballgame, because it was mainly a defensive-driven draft, especially with the first 3 picks. What are your thoughts?
Well, for me, I think you always got to go with looking at what are your key holes that need to be filled and how you're gonna fill them. And I think across the board, when you look at I don't really look at where they picked. I looked at what they picked, and everybody that they selected were guys that were right in that not at the top tier, but essentially outside of the first 2 picks, everybody was somebody that had contributed highly to the success of the program that they played for, and that tells me that one, they look for guys that had uncanny ability.
Yeah.
They knew without a shadow of a doubt were tough, hard nosed, and willing to get out there and put their nose in to see things get accomplished. The secondary, the kid out of Florida, that they grabbed. I like
Jason
that kid.
Marshall.
Jason Marshall. Yeah, I like him. I think he has a high upside in terms of being coachable. Athletically, he doesn't jump off the charts at you, but he can. There are some great things that I think he can do in this system with Weaver. You know what I mean? And if they're gonna go with somebody, you might well go with somebody that really and truthfully got the length that you need to be able to play outside on the boundary. So I like his measurables. Grant, obviously, that's a no-brainer. You know what I mean? That guy's gonna be tough to move around inside. They need to get Zach some help. So I'm glad they went and did that. And then they got Phillips as well. So they think about longevity as well because, we are kind of old. We were kind of older up front. And at the same time, these guys going to bring a whole other level of fire, I think, to that defensive line position. And it gives you a really solid rotation along the front. And I think, to be honest with you, as looking at all of the pieces, I know that people were hoping that maybe we would have went corner a little bit more or something of that nature. But I think today's football game is really going to be centered around how effective your front seven can be. And if you can generate enough pressure from the front seven, you don't have to be elite in the back end. You just have to be good enough. And you can be above average in your back end and still be successful as long as your front seven dominate. And I like the rotational pieces that they have. I think that we have some good depth at our linebacking core now. I do like the what's the kid? He's fast, man.
Eugene Asante from Auburn, the UDFA.
Yeah.
He runs like a 4.48.
4.8. Yeah. Speed everywhere, man. As long as it translates to, things that they can do within their skill sets, which I believe Weaver will do. I don't think he's out there asking cats to do things completely outside of what they can physically do and be able to do successfully over and over again. His defense is not really that intricate in regards to asking guys to really think a whole lot, but it's just react. And a lot of these guys have proven time and time again, if you watch the tape, that they're really good at knowing what their alignment and assignments are and getting to the ball. And that's really what it matters, really what it matters the most, how effective we can be at holding up on the back end is going to be, I said, predicated to how effective we are at getting after the passer up front. Some of those things still got to be worked out. We know Chubb is going to, Chop is going to be looking his teeth. He's probably going to, at this point, now be the fixture on one side, and then you have a rotational thing between Chubb and Phillips because Chop's proven that he can, he can do his part on one side. So now you got to figure out who's going to be on the opposite side of him. And that bodes well for those guys because they don't have to necessarily have to worry about doing the lion's share of things. But all in all, I like the draft, man. I really did. This is one time where I can actually walk away from it thinking to myself, like, grit and F it up. And I was okay with what they selected, Got some nastiness for the offensive line. Got some nastiness for the D-line. Got some solid pieces for the secondary. Guys that can come in and compete right away with guys that we already have because we really don't have, outside of Ramsey, who doesn't look like he's probably going to still be with us, an established starter. So you're going to have some good competitions there. May the best man win those jobs. And then a safety as well to add into the mix for Melifanu and Ashton Davis, which most people forget about that we signed. But I think Ashton Davis is going to actually be able to resurrect his career with the Dolphins. I think they're going to have a really heavy – you're going to see a really heavy usage of him, and I think he's going to be –
just got to stay healthy.
That's it. That's really the question.
Same with Melifanu, too.
Melifanu, just stay healthy. As long as they stay healthy.
So I will say this. I'm not a fan of the Jason Marshall pick. Everyone knows if I have to claim a team, I claim the Gators, I guess, because of, the Tebow days and the Chris Leak days. I was really in on them. He's a 5-star recruit.
Yep.
Hasn't had a pick since 2022.
Yep.
Injured last year. Kind of a failed project. I look at the board, like I would have taken Zoff Frazier out of UDSA. Now, Jason Marshall is actually a pretty good athlete. He has the 160 best RAS ever out of all cornerbacks. He scored a 9.37. Zoff Frazier scored a 9.28. Now, this is where I would have bet on Zoff Frazier over a guy like Jason Marshall. Zoff Frazier ran a 4.36. Jason Marshall ran like a 4.49. And okay, now he's 6 foot. He's like just 6 foot and a half, 194. Zoff Frazier is 6'2", 7/8, and like 190. And he's like, check this out. Jason Marshall, 30 and a quarter arms. Zoff Frazier, 32, and 0.8 inch arms. I would have bet on Zoff Frazier. I don't understand this pick. Like I listen, it's a 5th round, so I'll never say I hate a pick or I don't like a pick because now we're getting into glorified UDFA territory. I like the Dante Trader pick better. I think Dante Trader at least gives me special teams in year one. I don't think Jason Marshall is going to be very much of a special teams guy. I think there were better options at safety. I think there are better options at corner. And I'll say this. I think there were better options specifically to double up at guard. Jackson Slater was still on the board. I think there were better options. I don't know, man. The Jason Marshall, that feels like a big reach to me. And you leaned on the scouting department. Now, the scouting department was right about Patrick Morris last year. Yeah. He had to go back 3 years in his college tape to actually find the tape that they clearly liked, because his recent tape into that draft wasn't very good. But man, I'll be honest with you. I don't see this kid being very, and I've heard rumblings that they want to go more man. So, I think that's going to be a little bit of an issue for him too. So even with the guy they signed yesterday, Kendall Sheffield. Dude, that guy transitioning, flipping his hips and transitioning in phase. He's a fucking disaster, bro. Like stumbling over his feet. The footwork's terrible. Like, holy, you got terrible balance while he's transitioning. Like, it's awful.
I think the problem.
You want to go to man with that?
I think the problem at defense nowadays across the board, it's even outside of the NFL, is the fact that guys don't necessarily do the old school drills. Once they leave high school, they're only relying on sheer athleticism. Most guys nowadays, you don't even see them actually even do a pure back pedal. So there's going to be flaws in all of their games, right? I mean,
yeah.
I see even when I look out there and I see Ramsey, who's still I think one of the best in the league, sidestepping, you know what I'm saying, or side shuffling instead of backpedaling. That tells me everything I need to know. The guy's just not sticking to the fundamentals. At the end of the day, no matter how great an athlete is, if you don't have the technique or you don't stick to the fundamentals of the technique, eventually, the flaws gonna show, and they all got them. I don't know. It's just a matter of how dedicated they are to getting them coached up. Some guys, these guys are still young enough to be able to fix some of the errors, I believe. But and was he? He might have been. Yeah, it could have been a reach, right? Because maybe they didn't go as deep into that position group as they should have.
Well, you know what I would have done? I would have traded up I would have stopped that Stephon. I would have traded. Listen, they're already acting like they're moving like they're going to be back next year. You should have, and you're going to get a 4th round comp pick for Javon Holland. I would have traded a 3rd or something next year, and I would have moved up, and I would have tried to get Stephon Revel. I think I fell to what was it, 116 or something like that? Or there's something around there. I don't know what it was.
Yeah,
he went to Dallas.
Yeah.
I'll tell you right now what he went to. But I would have stopped that slide. The problem was, because a lot of people, and we're going to get to Richmond in a second here, a lot of people hated the fact that we traded up for Jonas Savaianaya, right? No, he went to 76. Sorry, I apologize. Savon went to 76. The problem was we would have had to trade up from 98 anyways, because that run at corners happened between 70 and 80, 65 and 80. So you would have had to trade up anyways if you would have wanted to add a corner to the mixture with your 3rd pick. If you would have got, let's say Savaianaya falls to us at 48 and you get Kenneth Grant, you still would have had to trade up from 98 if you would have wanted a shot at one of these guys, or you just would have ended up doubling up at defensive tackle in your first 3 picks, which you ended up doing anyways, right? So I don't know. I would have moved up for one of those corners, bro. Listen, I asked you what your thoughts on this, because I can't believe you're not beside yourself with this corner room. Now I get it. You're not wrong. Everyone saw what the Eagles did. If you can win full with 4, that means you can drop more into coverage from linebackers, safeties back. You can drop way more bodies into coverage. I get that. But, bro, at least have something that's passable, because once you trade Ramsey, it looks like the obvious move is you got to move Kohu out to the boundary more, because you can't rely on Cam Smith yet. What do you got going on right now? I think BJ Adams, listen, I'll tell you this much. I think BJ Adams, the cornerback UDFA from UCF, I think he's going to be better than Jason Marshall. Mark my words on that one. Mark, we're gonna come back to corner here in a bit. We'll talk about corner, but I want to get your thoughts on corner in a bit here. But let's hear Richmond. They drafted an offensive lineman. Yeah. Dolphin fans have been begging for them to draft an offensive lineman for, since Moby Dick was a minnow. And now that we get up and get aggressive and get our guy, well, You traded up, you traded tonight. And even when people are showing, hey, the Rich Hill chart, the Jimmy Johnson chart, this is a fair trade. If you go by the Jimmy Johnson trade, we won that trade by 1 point. If you go by Rich Hill, we lost it by 3 points. So, like, you know, it's a fair trade either way you slice it. What are your thoughts on trading up and getting your guy? What are your thoughts on Jonas Savaianaya? What do you say to fans that were begging for offensive linemen and now are complaining that we traded up to get one?
Like, I figured out a long time ago, everybody's not going to be happy no matter what you do. And if you don't pick a certain person's pick, they're just not going to be happy. But I was hoping for offensive lineman in the first round, but when we took the defensive tackle, I was like, okay, that is a need. And it just shores up the middle. I think we got enough edge rushers to where if you shore up the middle, it makes it solidifies a defense to me to where when you play a guy like a Josh Allen in Buffalo, it helps with him not being able to hit those lanes and just shred the defense when, you know, you basically got him stopped. So I like that, and I like that we're getting young guys that we can rotate in and out. And then we took the lineman in the second round. I was like, I seen Jonah. Didn't know much about him, but when I watched his highlights and I'm like, he can play, you know, multiple positions. I was like, and he's aggressive. You can tell he's got a mean streak. And I was like, I think that's what we need. And we even talked about it a little bit last year on the show about how teams like Kansas City, Philly, Detroit, I even thought about the 49ers, how they're starting to run the football. And one of the issues we had is we couldn't run between the tackles. And so when you plug guys like that in there and you can run in and out between the tackles, I think it's a win. It's a win-win for your defense because it creates more time of possession to where you keep your defense fresh. It takes pressure off Tua because you can come with a more balanced attack where he don't have to drop back and throw the football 35, 40 times. So I start seeing them make moves like this, and I'm like, I know everybody's not going to be happy, but if you just sit back and really look at what they did and the guys they selected, and like Ballgame was saying, guys that had experience or played key roles as far as helping their teams win and stuff like that. That's the mental side of it. And when you can get, you know, you're supposed to hit on your first, second rounders. But when you start bringing guys in the later draft picks, and then they can help your team and they play above what they do and help you out, that's when you've really done really well. So I was really happy with it, and I just want to see them stick to the plan. And I think McDaniel said something about he wants to run the football more in between the tackles. And when you get a guy like Jonah, big man like that, we should be able to open some holes up and do that. And we're gonna have some young guys, and it's creating competition in the offensive line, which I like too, rather than just saying we're bringing guys in and nobody really has to work for their position. So I love the competition and all that. I don't know so much about the defensive back from Florida, you and Ballgame kind of going back, but I did enjoy the two analysts going back and forth.
I'll give you another reason why I would have doubled up on offensive guard.
Okay.
You know, instead of Jason Marshall. You know, okay, James Daniels, he's just removed from an Achilles injury. If he doesn't look good or something goes wrong, you got to rely on Larry Borum or Liam Eichenberg. You know, if Austin Jackson gets hurt every year, he's hurt more than Tua is. I'm not even being funny. That's serious, right? Him and Jalen Phillips are hurt more than Tua is, right? If he gets hurt again, you got to kick out either Savaianaya to right tackle, but then you're relying on Borum or Eichenberg, or you got to keep Savaianaya at guard, and then we got to rely on Keon Smith at tackle. Like, you know, you didn't help. But hey, if Phillips goes down, we got Chubb, we got Mo Kamara, we got Chop Robinson. You know, Quentin Bell can step up if you need him to. Like, look at the depth comparison. It's like night and day. It's like, listen, you know what's scary? I got more faith that if Aaron Brewer goes down, relying on Andrew Meyer, the UDFA last year, than Liam Eichenberg or Larry Borum. Because I did a whole video last year before the year started. A whole video breaking down film of why Robert Jones and Liam Eichenberg were not NFL starters, and this was not a good idea to go in with the season. But in the film study, I also pointed out how good Andrew Meyer was. and how he was showing more prowess on the interior and picking it up quicker than Eichenberg and Robert Jones were, et cetera, et cetera. And sure enough, you know, who looks like he's probably got the higher upside as a death player, Andrew Meyer. Well, these two jabronis are still like roaming around. And that's the problem. You should have continued to build the depth, especially like I go back to BJ Adams. That UDFA, they brought him in for a 30 visit. They were big on so they probably knew he was going to be a UDFA ad. So if you were just going to gamble in the 5th round, you might as well just wait until BJ Adams and UDFA, because that's another thing. I think this UDFA class is very, very good. Andrew Armstrong, the receiver from Arkansas, he led the SEC in receiving yards last year. Okay. All right. You got that kid Theo Weiss from Missouri. I think he's a very good receiver, right? You got who Ballgame had alluded to earlier, Eugene Asante from Auburn, runs a 4.48 linebacker. And I think he offers you better special teams upside than a guy like Channing Tindall. You know, BJ Adams, I think is going to make that kid, that safety from Ole Miss, John Sanders.
Yeah.
I think in a weak safety room, that kid might offer you something too. So it's a really good, it's a really, really good draft class and UDFA class. But the Miami Dolphins, let's get into the cornerback situation, okay? Let's get into this a little bit, all right? And the Miami Dolphins, well, they've kind of been dealing with somewhat of a, shall we call it an issue? I don't know. And that's at cornerback right now. And they've been looking into the free agent market. And one of the big names they've been looking at is Rasul Douglas. Now, per source, right? We had already been in contact with Rasul Douglas. This was reported at the end of April. Okay. Bradbury, Hilton Gilmore, Shaq Griffin, they're out there too. Obviously, the word just came out about Asante Samuel Jr. He has a neck issue. That's why he hasn't signed with the team yet. But anyways, per source, Rasul Douglas quietly visited Dolphins headquarters last week. Miami made an offer, but decides to not come to terms. He's visiting Seattle today to be determined if he signs there. Miami's inquiry into the veteran corners continues. Gentlemen, what are we doing here? Okay. We can't even get, all right? We can't even get a deal done right now with a corner that is in his early 30s, past his prime. I mean, listen, that front can be as good as you want, but at some point, in some reps in the game, you're going to have to hold your coverage. Should Dolphin fans be worried that they can't even land Rasul Douglas right now? Or do you agree with what I think they're at? I think they're trying to trade for one right now. And that's why they acquired that extra 3rd-round pick by trading back from 116. I think they're looking into the trade market. Jalen Watson from Kansas City is available. Jair Alexander from Green Bay is available. If you want to add a slot option, Amik Robertson is available from Detroit, and then you could kick Kohu out to the boundary. Should fans be? I'll start with you, Ballgame. I mean, this is your specialty. Should fans be worried looking at this corner room and the fact that they can't get a 30-plus over-the-hill corner right now to lock down, or is this just Greer low-balling and they're probably exploring the trade market?
Yeah, I ain't thinking too much into it, to be honest with you. And I'm gonna tell you why, because I went 4 straight seasons where none of my guys, until my son came of age to be able to be listed as one of the top corners in the nation, and we had basically the number 3, number 2, and number 1 defense for 4 straight years, because the defense was just solid and guys did their alignment and assignment. So I think when you're at this level, the fact that these guys have made it there for me, they're not big names. They're not flashy guys. They're not guys that you're just going to just run out and just be like, let me get that guy's jersey without the thing. But it's up to Weaver, man, to get these guys coached up. So for me, the biggest concern always starts with me up front. If you can't generate any pressure, it doesn't matter what names you got in the back end. It ain't going to matter. They still going to get, because if you ask somebody to run around for 7 to 9 seconds while a guy back there freelancing, you can't get to him with a 3-4 man, sometimes even a 5-man rush. It doesn't matter. We can have a whole back end full of nothing but Jalen Ramsey and Deion Sanders. Somebody's going to get cooked. The fact of the matter for me right now at this point that nobody wants to sign tells me most of those guys are probably looking to try to go somewhere that's going to actually that they deem is going to be better.
Yeah,
right?
competitive.
And when you got as a veteran, I'm not going so well, saying on the premise of hoping and wishing. I need some.
Yo, Razul's probably
guaranteed.
like,
Hell, I couldn't
you
get
want
it.
me to lead what? That room, and you're gonna pay me what?
Yeah.
And like, I'm trying to be a number 2 or number 3 and win right now. I'm not trying to lead a room at the veteran minimum. What are you saying? I don't.
And and it could be the smartest thing for them to do probably would be to try to work some trade out with someone. That's what I would be putting all my eggs in the basket for too. Trying to see if somebody has a player that's disgruntled that they want, that doesn't want to be where they currently are. And then
Are you a fan of Jair?
My only issue with Jair has just been the injuries, but I also understand the position. It's tough in the NFL nowadays to play corner and to stay healthy because of the demands, right?
Yeah.
Jair is indeed one of those guys though that you will see actually working the back pedal. So he's actually putting his body through a lot more game in and game out because he actually is relying on the technique. But at the end of the day, he's not a spring chicken anymore. So there's gonna be some wear and tear on that. But he'd be a far cry up. He'd be a huge upgrade to everybody else not named Ramsey in the room. So, and to some degree, you still need a leader. It's just the Dolphins, I think, painted themselves into a really weird space though, because of the fact that you brought Jalen in, and now Jalen's disgruntled, and that ripples across the league. If Jalen don't want to play there, and then Tyreek is out here talking about, saying, first you said 2 was one thing, and now you're saying something different.
And you quit on us.
yeah. He don't, but he don't want to hold himself responsible for that. Everything is everybody else's fault. You feel me? The type of stuff that they got going on right now, I think is just stuff that should always be handled in house. But when they, nowadays when they can get out here and air out their disgruntled, just put their feelings out here in the social media world, that kind of.
It's going to turn other veterans off and
such.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah, I agree. Richmond, what are your thoughts on the cornerback room, the situation, and how it's shaping up?
Yeah, the main thing, I think Ballgame hit on most of the points, but I do agree. You look at the scheme of the defense the team normally plays. You look at who's on that defense, and the Dolphins have already been kind of labeled as soft. And like you say, once you're a veteran and you're trying to, go somewhere, you want to select somewhere where you at least have opportunity to win. And then the last thing y'all brought up is, all the off the field drama, like with, Jalen Ramsey, like he was happy to come here. He's a Florida guy, and then gets to play for the Dolphins. And then now he just got, became the highest paid cornerback, and then he's ready to get out of here. And then, we all know about the Tyreek situation. It's always something with him. So that's guys kind of pay attention to that. And even if they kind of like the situation, whatever, it's like, man, I don't need to get caught up in that drama because I just want to play football. I want to try to win, go home and see if we can win a championship. So I could see that kind of deterring, some players from saying, man, I can go somewhere else and don't have to worry about all this and still have an opportunity to win. And then the other thing is I think you brought up a good point also, Ballgame, is, Greer's not showing his hand. It's possibility that he could be looking to trade for somebody. Those are all viable options, but
that was Reason's. That was Reason's point. I just agree with it because he got to have something, and he got to have something he's not showing. You know what I mean? At this point, that room is light. It's real light, but.
And I think all these dramas play into themselves. Like, I can confirm for 110%, Jalen and Tyreek, there's real tension there. Jalen's pissed at him. For Jalen. You remember that clip came out of you quit and you leaving Reek, and Jalen laughing when Tyreek left the field and quit on them doing the Jets. Like, I was told, no, that's like an awkward, like, is this guy for real type of laugh? There's legitimate tension. Jalen Waddle's fed up with him. I don't know if it's changed since they reported to off-season workouts, OTAs, like 2 weeks ago. But up until that point, Tua and Tyreek had not talked since the season ended. Tua is mad at Tyreek for quitting on the team. Tyreek is mad at Tua for not playing through the hip injury when he had the wrist injury and he was playing through it. And he was basically saying, Tua, you're the franchise quarterback. You need to step up. You need to tell them, I'm going to play through this, blah, 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 blah. And I'm playing through a wrist injury. What the F are you doing? So there's legitimate tension between them. And then I know, Ramsey got made the highest paid last offseason, but remember, Jalen Ramsey is 31 and he has no guaranteed money on his contract after this year. Right. The next 2 years after this are no guaranteed money, and then the third year is a void year. Right. So he basically, think about this. Think about him for a second, okay? When he got here, he came back weeks early from that injury, right? Jalen Ramsey in year one. Jalen Ramsey has been a soldier for us, however way you want to cut it. Did he look like he was trailing a bit more in 2024 than he had in previous years? Sure. But he was a soldier for us, okay? Willing to play ball. The problem is he's also a very God-fearing, he's a very Christian, he is a very Christian man, okay?
Right.
He's sitting there watching y'all, and I'm talking about McDaniel and such, watching you guys protect Tyreek, a morally corrupt individual who's not putting the team first, who's not being a good soldier, and you went out and made sure he got money and got taken care of last year.
Yeah.
And because you took care of him, you only took care of Ramsey for one more year. Tyreek has got some more money on the back end there for a team to convert if they want to.
Right.
So he's sitting here saying, McDaniel, I know you went over Brandon Shore to get Tyreek paid. You did this for a guy who's been nothing but a headache and caused you problems. Well, I've come back from injury early. I've tried to be a leader in your locker room. I want to legitimately win, and you're playing these games, and you know what he turned around and he said? You know what he said? Turned around and said, oh, look at who I'm represented by, Athletes First. Go get them. Because you know how Athletes First and Chris Greer, it doesn't go very well. Most Athletes First clients have ended up leaving here.
Yeah.
Right? And, what do you think, Jonah? Hey, did you guys notice Jonas Savaiinaea is the only one who didn't sign a contract? Go look up who his agency is.
Oh, yeah.
And you know why? Because Jaden Higgins just got a fully guaranteed deal. And what do you think Savaiinaea is saying? You traded up for me. Give me a fully guaranteed second-round deal. Carson Schwessinger, who I mentioned earlier that they really liked, the Browns gave him a fully guaranteed deal. Second round. Jaden Higgins was the first ever second-round pick with a fully guaranteed deal. He got almost $12 million guaranteed. Second round pick, not a first round pick, second round pick.
Guys, please, hey man, if you lock them in, man, they'll play better for you. So it's
now you're okay, but now we're getting into the situation where how many veterans can't get $12 million guaranteed over 3 or 4 years right now, and they've been in the league for 6, 7, 8 years.
Hey,
and you got a kid who's in the second round, not a top 10 pick, not a top 25 pick. Outside the top 32, getting fully guaranteed money. That's a new beast.
It's the same argument Charles Barkley and them have with the contracts that the boys getting these days. Business go forward. Times change. Contracts change. It is what it is.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You are now getting into a territory. In 10 to 15 years, they're going to be fully guaranteed deals. In 5 years, third-round picks it's going to be the norm for third-round picks to have fully guaranteed deals. This is where, and I'm telling you, the old white boys club of the NFL, when that new CBA comes around, they're going to try and stop this. Remember, they tried to stop remember when Sam Bradford got all that money? Mm-hmm. Remember when those quarterbacks were getting that crazy money? And what happened? They capped it in the CBA, right? They're going to come around and they're going to do it again. Watch. Because listen, we all know Jerry Jones and these old decrepit white boys. You think they like that second-round picks are getting fully guaranteed deals right now? Because now that's messing with your cap. Now draft class are going to cost much more money, and now you got to play with your cap even more, and that's one headache the white boys aren't going to want. You know how it works.
As long as you cap them, there's always ways to get the cat skin, as long as they go through, run the numbers, and they can put the caps wherever they need to put them for each position based on where you drafted to, because they got them slotted. They got it slotted for the first round, so you might well go ahead. And I thought when they did it for the first rounds, it makes sense for you to go through and go
No,
ahead and start slotting.
there's been people, you know what they've suggested? Having salary caps for each position.
Yeah.
Like positional salary caps, not a general salary cap,
Yeah,
but a
positional.
salary cap for positions.
I don't see nothing wrong with that.
That could lead you to no, bro. You know where we're heading? I'm telling you, 10, 15 years, it'll be the NBA. Everything will be fully guaranteed, and you'll have these monster deals. That's where they're heading towards. And you know what? I don't blame them because
they got the money.
But who's putting their body on the? Who's good?
The players
who's going to have a better quality of life after 40? A basketball player or a football player?
The basketball player, of course.
Exactly. And
well, it ain't even that.
Money?
Baseball players, actually.
Well, I'm just comparing them the two.
Them dudes want robbing everybody.
Because they have those levels, right? Because what is that level? If you're drafted by the team, they can offer you more money than any other team can, right? Yeah. So I'm just saying, like, who's going to have a bigger wear and tear on their body? It's like, dude, the highest paid hockey player is like $12 million a year, $13 million a year. And think of how much they're doing to their body. They're right there with football players. They play 82 games a year plus the playoffs.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, like think about that. I think of your quality of life. A lot of these guys go
compensation is key, man.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, these guys, these owners and the corporations are making money over, you know what I mean?
Oh, hand over fist. Yeah.
You gotta and what you paying the players really and collectively is just a drop in the bucket still to what they're making. So
that's true.
It's only fair.
Yeah. So then just a quick update for everyone, because I know they are probably going to ask for a cap update. This is just a cap update for you. Dolphins have about $14 million in cap space and would have about $24 million if they trade Ramsey for a 2026 pick after June 1st. So Barry Jackson said any PHINS decision on remaining unrestricted free agents is not driven by cap space, but the money value they put on each unrestricted free agent. Of course, they can carry over unused cap space to next year if they want to. So, I mean, you know, I'm telling you, this reeks of they got to trade. They're trying to facilitate a trade, bro. There is no way they're going to trade away Jalen Ramsey and go into the season with Cam Smith, Kader Kohu as your like top two, you know, like especially when you're safety. Listen, we can talk about Ashton Davis and Melifonu's upside all we want, but again, they're big question marks because of their injury history.
Wow.
They're not going to go into the season with these many question marks in the secondary. They're going to have some kind of certainty. They're going to trade. I'm telling you, they're going to, and maybe that's why they haven't made a move for Asante Samuel is because the whole neck thing going on right now with them. So, you know, that is a real thing too. So anyways, today it was also announced that the Miami Dolphins, they will be playing, if you look at the bottom of the screen right there, they will be playing in Madrid on Sunday, November 16th at 9:30 a.m. Holla Miami in Madrid.
Against the Commanders, huh?
Yeah, hey, nothing like some paella and some football on a Sunday morning, huh? Nothing says Sunday morning like some paella and some football.
City.
I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on this though. Are you guys sick of the traveling yet? I mean, like every year, you know, like look at this, okay? I don't know if you guys noticed, Minnesota is playing back-to-back. They play September 28th in Dublin, and then they play in London on October 5th. I wonder if the NFL is testing how this will work on traveling teams, having an international team over there. First time they're ever doing. But look at the teams, guys. Okay, so they're waiting for the Chargers, right? But the Vikings, the Steelers, the Browns, the Jets, you know, the Broncos, the Rams, the Jags, the Falcons, the Colts, the Commanders, you know, the Dolphins. Where are the Eagles? You know, where are the Chiefs? Where are they? You know, why is it always, they'll send one of those teams every 3 or 4 years, but it seems like every year they're getting the teams that they want to keep in the middle. They keep sending them overseas because, again, we're in another year where we're going to be 8th this year in miles traveled. We're going to travel about 24,409 miles. The Chargers and the Rams are obviously leading because they have international games, but they're also West Coast teams. Seattle's 3, another West Coast team. San Francisco is 4th. Is 5th, another West Coast team, right? So What are your guys' thoughts on playing over in Spain? Richmond, you played over international games. Didn't you like play over in like Japan or something like that?
Played in Japan. I played in Berlin,
Mhm.
and I played in Mexico City. And I think the difference is when I played, they were all preseason games. And so probably for an equipment manager and the training staff, it's probably a lot more hectic because you're normally taking a lot more guys. But, you know, this is during the actual season. It's actually either for some teams, it's a home game or away game. And so I look at, NFL is about making money. And it wouldn't surprise me, like you were just saying, that, eventually they have an international team over there, but it's enough interest to where now it's several games a year. It's not that's played overseas in different locations. So if they wasn't making money, they wouldn't continue to do it. So looking forward. I mean, I'm looking forward to it because I'm actually going to be traveling over to kind of help promote the game and stuff like that. So I got to do a little promo video and stuff. I just found out this week that I will be doing that and seeing if people want to come hang out. Be doing different stuff. I don't know if it's wine for me. I don't know. Hopefully it's like wine tastings or something like that. I don't play no golf. My elbows will be screaming if I try to get out that. I'll ride around in a golf court with you, man.
So you promoting for the Madrid game?
Yeah, for the Madrid game. So I get
out
to do that. And I actually went on the Dolphin cruise a couple of years ago, and that was actually fun. Got to meet a lot of Dolphin fans and hang out and stuff like that. So that was pretty cool. But so y'all will probably see it on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook. I just got to get it loaded up and that there. So but I think as a player, I don't know if I want to do this every year, go overseas and, because it's in the middle of the season. And so I think that's got to be a tough adjustment. I'm fortunate that I didn't have to do that, but I don't know if I want to do that during the season, but it comes with the territory.
As long as it's a normal routine week where you play on Sunday and they give you time to go home and then get back on the plane Monday morning and they luxury you, right? Make sure everything's good where you can sleep or whatnot. I don't think that. I mean, I don't know. I guess you need to be there.
Yeah, you got the time change, and I figured take a couple of days to adjust to that, and it's a little different, but
right.
I just hadn't really had an opportunity to talk to some of the current players that's playing now to see, if they've actually went over and how did they feel or what did they really get their thought process on it. But that's the thing I kind of in the preseason I say, okay, I'm cool with it because those games really don't count.
Right.
But you don't want to go over there and then, you just have a bad showing and lose a game. And now the games are so important. So that's what I look at as far as regular season games. But this is the norm now, and you just got to get used to it and it come with the territory.
But do we haven't, it feels like I want to do a tally to see who's played the most international games since they started doing this stuff. Because I feel like we're right up there. Us in Jacksonville, I feel like us in Jacksonville are right up there.
Well, you look at it with Miami, especially with South Florida having such a diverse culture, and like you say, Spain, they speak Spanish. All that kind of plays. I mean, the Dolphins have a huge, I think, international following, so they're gonna send teams that they know people. Whether they root for them or whatever, it's about money. So yeah.
So are you saying 2026 Miami and Cuba?
I don't know. That's a communist country. I don't know.
No, what's crazy? Remember when this whole international thing kicked off?
Yeah.
The Bills had 2 games up here in Canada, one against the Dolphins and then one against the Jets, and they've never been back.
Was it good attendance at the game?
Oh yeah, bro. You should we had 60 or 70,000 for that Dolphins one.
I wonder did they get taxed?
The problem, no, you know what the problem is? The Buffalo Bills, they they are afraid of a NFL franchise in Toronto, so they don't want to promote anything like that.
That's too close. Yeah.
Yeah. They don't want that because you know what I've been a proponent of since I was in my teens. Shut down the CFL, right? Pool all your money together, pool all your best talent together, create an East Coast and a West Coast franchise, one in Vancouver, one in Toronto, and join the NFL. Because people forget, you might remember. Do you remember when the CFL expanded out to the US?
Oh, yeah.
We had teams we had, I think they had a San Antonio team, and they had a Baltimore team, and they had one more team up. They had a Baltimore team before the Ravens were there. Yeah. So like I would shut the CFL down and I would pool it into two teams. What do you think is going to make more money? The two teams under one umbrella owned by the old CFL heads in the NFL, or the CFL? The NFL is going to make way more money for you. But the Grey Cup's 120 some odd years old. Oh, okay.
So the international experience is what they calling it, and it says that the Bills have played 8, Dolphins have had 7, and the Jags have had what does it say? Patriots have 5, Jets got 4, Ravens 2, Bengals 2, Steelers.
The Jags
1.
have had like 3. They haven't won another one this year. They've
Jaguars
had
13.
Oh yeah, I told you. Holy jeez, that's a ton.
Colts got 2, Texans 2.
So is it Jags, Bills, and us?
Yeah.
Basically?
Yeah. No, the Raiders got 5 as well.
Hold on. Let me ask you this. How many of those Bills games have been since Josh Allen was there?
They say, hold on. So it says here that the most recent ones was
13 for the Jags.
It doesn't say. It doesn't say. Yeah.
Crazy. Anyways.
Well, they had one. They won so far because they had the Jags in 2023 when they played in Tottenham. Bills and Jags played, and they lost to the Jags in 2023. So.
Well, it's because the Jags owners, they own a English Premier League team as well.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that's crazy. 13. That's nuts.
That's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot.
Nuts. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Here's something else I wanted to talk about today. The Miami Dolphins, they added to their defensive front. They went out and they were awarded Matthew Butler off of waivers from Las Vegas. In turn, they waived former Kentucky defensive tackle Trayvon Ripka. So that didn't last very long for Trayvon. Now, Matthew Butler, we're talking about a guy since 2022. He's only played 168 snaps. He played 100. Sorry, on defense. I'm talking about. Last year he played his most. He played 101 snaps. Here we go. Just another Jag. We're talking about Jacksonville. Well, here's another Jag. Just another guy. Yeah, exactly. Right. So, not really much to add to that. I don't expect. I know people tried to get everyone hyped up about guys like, Quentin Bell last year, and I'm not about to sit here and do anything like that. Minute each. Final thoughts. Ball game. Go ahead, buddy. You're up. Final thoughts.
The space I'm in right now is one of just the reality of the situation is that we've gotten ourselves caught up in this space of giving too much and requiring enough back in return. And we had a coach that just, I don't believe, was just ready to deal with all that comes along with these high profile players. And, you got a guy show up late and you don't hold him accountable, but then you want to hold the other side of the coin that you don't coach directly accountable. That just reads a whole different level of contentment. And you can't do that. They're all grown men. The rules should apply the same for everybody across the board. And if Mike hadn't learned anything from this, you got to be right down the middle, even keel, and it can't be personal. It's business, right? Yeah. Personal stuff. Keep that out. Keep that out of the business because you're gonna lose guys, and these guys want the same treatment across the board because they know their worth. So if he doesn't do anything, he needs to be trying to bridge some of the gaps between the relationship holes he has right now. Otherwise, Jalen's gone. and Tyreek can be soon to follow because
Jalen's gone no matter what. It's over.
Diva. Well, it is what it is.
It's over no matter
That's
what.
unfortunate. So
Yeah, he's gone. Richmond, final thoughts?
Yeah, man, I'm just happy to be back on with you guys, and I think the thing I took away from it is, for the most part, we did a good job with the draft. Is continue to add depth in those key areas that we need to, because like we were talking about earlier, if one guy goes down, this and that, you don't want it to have such a huge impact on you to where you have a huge setback or you have a huge drop off at that position. So definitely let's get this cornerback situation figured out. Let's get that situated. But if we can add another lineman or two in the event that, like you said, Austin Jackson or somebody gets hurt or goes down, we don't have a huge drop off and we can continue to roll. But just happy to be back on here and man, just looking ready for the season to start. So yeah, I'm good.
All right, guys, smash that like button, subscribe if you're new. I'll be live tomorrow, so make sure to be on the lookout for that. Probably going to be live around schedule release. I'll be recording with Alf tomorrow, so I'll drop that on Friday. And then Thursday, I will be live with Neil. And then because of schedule release, we've pushed back the starting lineup to Friday night as well. So ton of content, fins up, smash the like button. See you on the next one.